Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the last session of this Congress. I would like to welcome Jason Crichton. I shortly introduce him. Jason started his career in aquariums at the National Aquarium in Baltimore in the US. After many years, he was invited to Charleston, also US, South Carolina, in 1996 to help in the construction of the South Carolina Aquarium. There he was involved in the facility development, in life support design, and in specimen acquisition as well. Jason currently is the Director of Husbandry and Facilities at the South Carolina Aquarium. He will talk to you today about ZIMS, the Zoological Information and Management System, about what will happen in the next few months. We hope, of course.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me to your meeting. I've enjoyed meeting my European colleagues. It's always nice to collaborate together. I think it's very critical and very important that I point out that I am a colleague of yours. I work at the South Carolina Aquarium. I do not work for ISIS. I haven't been paid by ISIS. My role started about 6 years ago at Oceanário de Lisboa, where I was invited with about 8 or 9 other people. Some of you were in the crowd. And we sat in a room for 5 or 6 days and really brainstormed what it would be like to have a program that would function for aquariums, would digitize everything that aquariums do. I've been involved since that process in the aspect of aquariums. When there's questions that come up and I can answer them about aquariums, I have. And have been involved kind of continuously, and that's what's brought me here today. Let me backtrack a little bit so that everybody understands. ISIS is the International Species Information System. They currently put out ARCs, MedARCs, SPARCs, programs like that that many aquariums, if not all of them, don't use entirely. Some might use a little bit of them. The next software program that ISIS is going to put out is called ZIMS. So ISIS is the company, ZIMS is the software program. ZIMS stands for Zoological Information Management System. ZIMS is going to change. Oops. ZIMS is going to change how we do business in the aquarium industry worldwide. Change is coming. Change always isn't fun to go through, but it's necessary sometimes. And the outcome of change, hopefully, is positive, which is what I hope ZIMS will do as well. Basically, in 3 words, ZIMS is a collection management tool. Everything that you do in aquariums, if you live in collection, will be entered into ZIMS, and you can get more information out. It's aquarium and zoo specific. This program has not been used elsewhere in other industries and adapted to aquariums. This program is designed by aquarium professionals for aquarium professionals. It is web-based. You can access it anywhere you want to in the world. You type in your password and the screen looks the exact same thing. In fact, all of your data is stored on the web, so you don't need to have any servers or anything. It's an international sharing of data. Let me come back to that a little bit, because sometimes that worries people about that sharing part of the data. It'll standardize how we do things, a unit of measure, so we're all talking on the same level playing field. And again, as I said, it digitizes things. Many of our radiographs now are digital, photographs, parasite photographs and microscopes, things like that can all be uploaded into ZIMS. People can look at it from all around the world. And then the user will be able to set the functionality and the privacy. When I mean by user, I mean the administrator. You'll have at least one person at your institution that has all of the functionality of ZIMS. And if you want to, you can make that private entirely so no one sees your collection, and you can be the only person that enters any data. The other extreme, of course, is opening up ZIMS to the rest of the world, or our community, that is, other people that use ZIMS, and having all of your staff working with ZIMS constantly. My end goal, my end vision for ZIMS is that it's open to everybody in your staff, it's real-time process for everybody, and it's open up to the world for communication and better understanding of how we do things, basically working on best practices. Going back to the international sharing of data, it's sometimes tricky. I've had this discussion with numerous people. An example I can give you, though, is online banking or the use of credit cards. 10 years ago, people are very worried about the internet and working with the internet. Now online banking and ordering things on the internet's pretty standard, and people are less concerned about that. That's, I hope, is the same learning curve that ZIMS will take us all through. Another example I want to point out, too, is that this is a massive, massive program. Right now it contains about 325 screenshots. There's more to come. Don't let this bother you. You can only use a small part of this if you want. Many of us, all of us, know how to use Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. I think I can use Excel pretty well, but I probably only use a very small portion of it. There's lots there I don't know about or don't even use. The ZIMS is the same way. You can only use a part of it if you want. Also, people are a little bit concerned about computers sometimes. There is going to be support. You'll have it. It'll be available to you in many, many forms. A phone call, people from ISIS going to your institution, online help, not to worry. If you can log into the internet, you can use ZIMS. There is support for you. And the other nice thing is you don't need IT staff to help you out in your institution. There's nothing to load up. It's purely if you've got internet access, you can use ZIMS. ZIMS will be released, wrong way again, Release 1, 31 March 2010. There's over 850 facilities, mostly these are zoos at this point, who have indicated an interest in ZIMS. And it'll be released in 4 different languages right off the bat. Those 4 languages are English, German, French, as well as Spanish. Many more languages are to come. Also, Release 1 will be changing too throughout the course of the year for Release 1. It'll be changing because there's going to be updates. We're going to be finding things that are bugs, maybe a little bit wrong with it, but not to worry. You won't even see those changes. Those will be made at the ISIS office and automatically put onto the web. So when you sign in, those changes will already be there. You won't have any downloading to do. You won't have any disks to load. It'll be very seamless and easy for you. Then subsequently, these are accumulations. ZIMS 1 will be released. It'll basically replace ARCS, if you know what ARCS is. But it'll have entire aquarium functionality in Release 1. Release 2 will kind of be the replacement for MedArcs. Release 3 basically replaces Sparks, and all these are additive, so they all are cumulative. And then Release 4 is advanced functionality. This is things like advanced alerts, text messages, synchronizing or syncing with your life support computers, preventive maintenance programs, and possibly even handhelds down the road that are waterproof that you can walk around to each tank with. But that's coming down the road. Let me stop here, though, and mention a couple of things before I go on. I want to show you some of these ZIM screens. To me, I've stressed all along, it's incredibly important. This is a very fast program, and it's easy to use. It will take a little bit longer than putting a check in a column on a paper log next to a tank, and I understand that. But the outcome should justify the little bit of extra time it takes to put the data in. I'll be talking a lot today about data into the system, but the real key here, the real importance here, is what you get back out of ZIMS, and that's what really sets ZIMS apart from any other program. So speed is very, very important. Another thing, too, I want to point out is when you log in as an aquarium, you will only see aquarium functionality. For instance, an enclosure or a tank, you'll have the options in an aquarium to be an aquarium, a bin, a tank, etc. You won't see barn or pen or yard, things for more terrestrial animals. So really kind of simplify it. Plus, the administrator can even narrow those bands down even more and more and more. So really, you don't have anything to select. It can just be one thing all the time. Again, making it much easier. So, as we all know, aquariums are much different than zoos, and I've been trying to impress upon ICE's staff this for many years, and I'm still working on it. For sake of time, I'm going to run through these a little bit quicker. Standardize, I already talked about that, standardizing the aquarium industry. It will work very well with individuals and groups and colonies, which I'll get to right off the bat, because that's the biggest question I get is how do you deal with groups and colonies of animals? Taxonomy right now is tied to fish base. That is due to a lot of input from the aquarium industry. They want it to be tied with fish base. There will be a URL you can click on and link right to fish base. So you get a picture and all the fish base information right there. If there's a taxonomic name that changes or you don't see it's not there, there will be a system by which you can contact ISIS. And they have told me 2 weeks ago that it'll be that same day or within 24 hours. There is to be very, very quick turnaround time to make sure a taxonomy is there and it's accurate. With groups and colonies and tanks and life support systems and aquariums, we're constantly splitting them, merging them together, moving them around. ZIMS can take care of that, and I'll explain. Water quality parameters, and the really neat thing is what you get back out of water quality parameters, the graphing you can do, trend analysis. Specimen collecting data, there's a whole screen for that, which will be later in the talk. And staff daily logs. I think we all have those clipboards with a paper next to each tank we have around the building. Once those papers are filled up and put in a binder, they're really not useful anymore. ZIMS has the ability to do daily logs. You can put temperature in, notes, maintenance, like backwashing, etc., all into the computer. And again, only if you want to. You don't have to do any of these things, but it's capable of collecting all that data. And then you can do queries on that down the road. Also, instant census and permit reporting. You can enter all of your permits in the requirements when you get the permit at the beginning of the year. At the end of the year, push a button, and there's your report. Everything you've collected, where you've collected it, anything you need to know. This is a very general ZIMS screenshot. I knew that you wouldn't be able to read it, nor do I expect you to be able to read it. But I just want to point out some of the areas, though. This area here is the navigation window. These things will always stay the same, and you go to anything from this area, animals, enclosures, life support, etc. This is a temporary area just for programming right now. This is called the banner. The banner is going to look very different, have a different look and feel to it once ZIMS is released. You will be able to minimize that and hide it if you want. I'm concerned myself about the area of, this is the body, how much area we have to work with there. Real estate's very important on a small monitor screen. But you'll also be able to select what you want in that banner. When you pull up an animal in the body, do you want to see its weight, what it eats, where it is, tank mates, you name it, you can select that to have in the banner, or you can minimize it. Logo for your facility goes here. This stuff is more for the administrator in your facility. And again, I want to point out, or point out for the first time, this is everything. This is the screen that shows all the administrative aspects of ZIMS. Don't get confused by this, because when you have it in your own facility and you want to use it as an aquarist, you have many, many, many less selections. You can always add more and more things as you get more and more comfortable with ZIMS. But this is everything right now. And then whatever you have in the body of ZIMS, these things over here change. These are actions that you can take with the body, or whatever you have in focus, as well as using these tabs up here. A lot of times you'll have repeats here and up here, but like my analogy of Microsoft Word or Excel, there's always more than one way of doing any task, and this is the same way ZIMS is too. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. Let's first start simply with getting the animal into ZIMS. Now, this is a blow-up, so you could see it and read it. This is of the upper left-hand corner. You select animal, drops down, new animal. You select, a couple clicks of the mouse. This screen comes up, and it's only a small portion of the entire screen that I pasted in this so you could read. You select where it came from, and in this case, I'm selecting a group, because I want to talk about groups with all of you. You click Save. It goes to this area over here. Again, a small portion of the screen. You enter a scientific name, where it came from, or how you got the scientific name, and then there's this group box right here. This is where I want to stop a little bit. You can click Track by Sex Type or Track by Life Stage. If the group you're adding colonizes, and ZIMS knows what colonizes, and if something's in here that you want to colonize and it's not in there, ZIMS will fix that. ISIS will fix that. But there would be a checkbox then in this group area that says colony. If you check that, no longer can you add a number of colonies. That means that you have one colony. But you can specify how you want to measure those colonies. Let's say you have a bunch of sponge on some live rock. Do you want to record that as a weight? Do you want to record that as a volume, cubic centimeters? Or do you want to record that as an area? Maybe it's 110 square centimeters. That's up to you. But that's how you work with colonies. Another question I got a couple of days ago was if that sponge all of a sudden asexually reproduces and it drops off onto the gravel, no problem. You make another colony, and ZIMS knows that other colony has come from the parent colony, and all that data you've stored kind of goes along with it. So you can keep track of those colonies as they move across the, and then when you move to another tank, for instance, it remembers where it came from, what tank it came from. So that's all done behind the scenes in ZIMS. I also want to point out, because you're probably reading the screen a little bit, 2 weeks ago I spent a week in Minnesota, in the United States, working with the program, doing all kinds of little minutia things. I'm concerned, a lot of people are, and we're going to get all these things changed. The slash is the wrong name here. Between scientific and common. Gorilla is not italicized. I want the scientific and the common name to look and appear in the same format on every screen so your eye can track it and follow it, not have to re-look at things differently. Reason for taxon selection should probably be method for taxon selection, which is going to be changed. This can be as it is DNA, RNA right now, or it's going to be morphometrics, visual, it can be post-necropsy. All those things are in the drop-down menu you can select. Things like date, we're going to have default to the day that you're entering the information. At least you'll have some chance that you won't have to enter a date in there. So little things like that we're working on. Plus, ZIMS right now only has gorillas, some snails, and a few slugs that we have to work with. So a lot of my tanks, I've got groups of gorillas in there. That'll, of course, change. Here is the big question that I get a lot, and that is, well, how do you deal with groups? If you can't identify all, especially if we can't identify 1,000 different anchovies, how on earth, the program's not going to work. Well, I agree. If you can't identify 1,000 different anchovies, certainly a software program isn't as well. I think the next best thing, though, is a bracket such as this. This is a pedigree. It's not a group or colony management bracket. Again, it's the gorilla, but it's a good example. We're not done yet with the group bracketing. But if you have a group of 100 fish, another group of 100 fish, you combine those, now you have 200. You'll see that graphically. You add 1,000 fish, so now you have 1,200 animals. You split that into 2 different tanks or 10 different tanks. You have births and deaths. This is all graphically drawn out like this. So you have a visual representation of the history of where all those animals in that group is split and gone from. Also, you have percentages, which is really the next best thing to identifying animals. You can click on any one of these groups. Like again, this is pedigree, I understand that. But you can get a percentage. So a fish dies, you take it out for a necropsy. You want to know, where did this fish come from? Well, the best thing we can do is give you about a 70% chance that it came from this group you collected, 10% chance that you got it from a donor, a 20% chance that you purchased this fish. You can also look back, too, and kind of figure it out on your own. That's really as close as we can get. And if there's another idea out there, please let me know. We've been working on this one for a while. Plus, any one of these fields you click on, you get basic information. So a group of animals in a tank, you put your mouse over it, is all you have to do. It gives you the census number, the tank it's in, basic parameters, plus it gives you links that you can go to different screens to get much more information out of it. Colonies and groups would be like this, and any one of these tanks you click on, you can get an immediate census of where you are. That's for groups and colonies. When it comes to enclosures or life support systems, we're doing a little bit different things. This is a tree form. In this case, it's Monterey Bay Aquarium, and that's just what I selected. And then you can add anything you want. In this case, first floor gallery, second floor gallery. I have exhibits down there, but if you want to call them people's names in different areas, you can set it up any way you want to. One thing I want to point out, though, is that under this gallery, you've got this tank, 2Q7, second floor, quarantine, the 7th tank, for instance. We put dividers in tanks a whole lot, or you have 2 separate tanks with one life support system, while A's and B's, or however you want to label that, is here. When you do water quality, I say one tank, ZIMS automatically knows it's to the parent tank, and the water quality there is the same for these tanks here. Also with water quality, you don't have to click each tank and enter it. You will have a set group of a gallery, for instance. You click on it, it'll give you a grid or a table with all those tanks you're going to test, and all you have to do is fill in the boxes, push save when you're done, and all that information is saved on the animal itself, or the group of animals, as well as the enclosure. If you use copper sulfate in a tank to treat some animals, on that tank record, the actual physical tank, it'll show that it's been treated with copper sulfate. You may never want that information, but 2 or 3 times down the road, you want to put invertebrates in that tank. You can look up the tank, where it's been, you have a graphical representation of it, plus you'll have the written text of what's been done with this tank, sterilized, used with copper, etc. So this is the tree format. You get the bracket format as well as the tree format, and you can fill this out any way you want to. If you noticed on that tree format, up on top here, it says attach life support. You highlight one of these, you click on that field, and it takes you to a life support attachment. I don't have that screenshot for you, but what I do have is something like this. I wanted to show you a data standard. Many of you in the audience and around the world, people have been working on data standards. This is how you get to your filtration. And I don't expect you to read this again, but in this case, it's aquatic life support. Type is filtration. And we've also have lighting, plumbing, things like that. The subtype in this case, and this is not all of them, just some of them, is mechanical processes. We have biological processes as well, chemical and sterilizing, and then you can get to your actual component. Some components, like a canister filter, might be used as biological. It might also be used as mechanical, like it mostly is. But when you add life support, this is sort of the process you go through with drop-downs to find what it is you want to add. For instance, we will be changing this constantly, probably. For instance, to talk about the hippos yesterday, that big screw system, that's not on here. I made a note, and we'll have to get this added to it. More things like this come up. There's a process to email ISIS, and immediately it'll be updated on the web. Next time you check in, it'll be there.
2 minutes, Jason.
3 minutes? Okay. Oh, my whole screen disappeared. Oh, there we go. I'm wrapping up. Changing topics a little bit. Collection trip data. If you want to enter everything you're collecting, the name of the trip, dates, and then all these here are tables. It looks a little confusing right now that each one of these adds is a table that can drop down. And you can put information here like anything you want. Location, vessels, personnel that went along, permits that are used, and really this is for best practices. Also, I want to bring up batch accessions. You go seining, you bring back 500 animals of 50 different species. You don't enter each one individually. That would take way too long. Some of the zoo people say, well, why not? Well, if you have one elephant and it takes you 2 hours to enter it, no big deal. If you have 500 fish, that's a big deal. So we have a grid that comes up. You drop down menu, you select the scientific name or common name, how many you have, and then with each animal that you put in as a batch, all this information on the collection sheet goes along with it. So a year from now, 5 years from now, you click on that animal, where it came from and how it came from is connected to that animal. Again, it's all about information out of ZIMS. Also, ZIMS will do a few other things. Queries, getting information out. Some examples, there's some ZIM standards that you have on the right-hand side of the screen. Plus, you can make your own queries and save them so you can go to them again and again and again. How many animals of what species do you have in your institution? How many of these animals are worldwide? How many have used a certain medication on a certain animal? I'm thinking about displaying a new animal to us. Who else has it? Who can I contact? What does it eat? It's really unlimited. The more data you put into ZIMS, the more you can get out of it. Also, graphing of data we talked about, and record keeping. A point that should be made is that nothing is deleted from ZIMS. It's just sort of made inactive. The data is always there. You can always go back to it down the road. When ZIMS is deployed, it's a pretty empty program. It's up to us to add information, and that's why sharing information is so important. As the years go by, 10, 20, 30 years from now, ZIMS is going to be a huge database of lots of information, and we'll only gain knowledge from it. And then ZIMS has some more abilities of research. If you want to classify at top level rather than Monterey Bay Aquarium, but a certain island in the Pacific, create different areas for it. Census reporting, water quality, just like in your exhibit, you can put all that information in. Also, zoonotic diseases, mad cow disease. Some governments are interested in ZIMS for being able to track those zoonotic diseases. So it's made by aquarists, for aquarists, but there is some other functions for it as well. These are some of the early adopters. The South Carolina Aquarium was one of them. We'll be getting it in March. We'll be testing it out, seeing how it's doing. 850 facilities, though, want to get ZIMS. If it's deployed to one facility a day, every day of the year, it's going to take almost 3 years to deploy. If you want to get your name on the list a little bit sooner, please contact ISIS at isis.org. They'd be happy to work with you and get it to you. The big question, and the last slide I want to go through, which is a little bit out of my norm. I'm the aquarium person here, but that is, how much does all of this cost? It might sound interesting, but the cost. You pay an ISIS membership fee once a year, as you always have if you use ARCs and MedARCs. Then there is a one-time fee to use ZIMS, and this fee goes towards the completion of ZIMS, and those fees are listed there. If you have any questions about the fee structure, the costs, and unique questions for your own facility, I'm not the one that can necessarily answer that. I can help you out, though. But if you contact in the corner, www.isis.org, they'd be happy to deal with you and work out anything that would be mutually beneficial. Again, my name is Jason Crichton. If you have any aquarium-related issues or questions, I have my laptop with me. I'd be happy to show you a working model. I can log into the servers that are right now in India and show you what is working with ZIMS right now. And also be happy to answer any aquarium questions, and ultimately any questions about ZIMS in general, you can always go to isis.org. Thank you. ZIMS and
Thank you, Jason. Are there any questions? Short question, perhaps? One? Yeah, up there.
Who's first?
Jason, good talk, thank you. How can you play around with graphs, for example, or data analysis? Is it a little bit the same as what you can do with Excel? Or is it a totally different system?
It is very the same. In fact, we use, I'll come back to that question in a second, but we use for notes, for instance, the Microsoft Word. Same looks, same everything, it's just a smaller window. The graphing is very similar to Excel. It can link with Excel. But there are drop-downs and menus that if you can, right now you'd be able to select, say, a water quality parameter, and then you'd be able to select graph. And then you put in the range that you want to put in, and then it'll graph it for you automatically. Plus the queries that I talked about, you can enter in different data, and if it's a graphable kind of data, that option will be there to be able to graph it. I have not seen it. I've seen still shots of it, but I haven't seen it working yet, so I can't talk about it much more. I, like the rest of you, I'm very hopeful of ZIMS. I want it to work. I have some personal pride in working with this for as many years. It needs to be usable, though. And I'm looking very forward to seeing these sorts of things like graphing and to see how fast it is. If my staff just can't stand this program, it's difficult, it's way too time-consuming. I have the same problem with it then that all of you would have. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Jason, for those institutions that are already using ARCs, how will that data be merged into ZIMS?
That is a great question. They are already working on, and I think they're almost done with it, a whole merging process for ARCs, Sparks, MedArcs, et cetera. Of course, ISIS wants to maintain that data, and it'll be a matter of loading up a program probably and just pushing a button. And all that data will be merged instantaneously. It's a great question. It's a very big concern. I sometimes forget about it because the South Carolina Aquarium is going to be a bit of a control, if you would. We're going to enter our data in at day one and go from there. Some of the other facilities that I showed you, I believe Monterey or Walt Disney will actually be syncing their data in, as you mentioned. So that data won't be lost. It'll just appear in a different format.
Okay, I think there will be a lot of questions when ZIMS has been starting in spring. We will see what will happen if it really works very well for us. Thank you very much, Jason.
Thank you.